My team and I conducted a nationwide search to find the best candidate for this position, and we found that candidate in Ann. She worked at the highest levels of the federal government as a special assistant for climate preparedness and resiliency at the White House Council on Environmental Quality during the Obama administration. She also has significant experience at the local level as the Coastal Resiliency Manager for the City of New Orleans. Our thoughts are with them today following the hurricane. I'm glad to have her expertise and experience on our team and look forward to her leadership in these efforts in the many years ahead. This position is important to our city, our people, and our future. We are a city that is deeply connected to the water through the ocean, the St. Johns River, and the many creeks and tributaries that flow throughout our community. Ann has a big task in front of her, but I'm confident in her knowledge and abilities to get it done. And now, so with that, we can officially get to work. It's time for me to sign this legislation confirming her appointment. Thank you. And now allow me to introduce the first to officially introduce the city's first Chief Resiliency Officer, Ann Coglianese.
Thank you, Mayor Curry, for that. And I just want to say that I'm very excited to be here. And as the mayor said, this is a city that is deeply connected to water. As we're seeing, we are having more frequent and intense storm events. We're having hotter and longer summers, and this all just requires that we factor that into how the city does business. So I'm really excited to be partnering with the mayor and working with the city departments to really get this done and to advance this work forward so that Jacksonville can be strong in the years ahead. So with that, I'd take any questions any of you have.
What are your plans for Jacksonville that you learned from your time in New Orleans?
One of the biggest things I learned from New Orleans, and I think one of the biggest lessons in resilience overall, is that it's better to be prepared before something happens than try to scramble on the back end. So I think the more that we can get ahead of some of the climate threats that face Jacksonville, the better we'll be when events happen. So we'll be putting together a comprehensive resilience strategy for the city that takes into account what threats are facing us, what our risk level is, and our vulnerability, and then looking at policy, project level, infrastructure level solutions to address those concerns.
Do you have any examples?
1 second to turn the microphone and check her mic. Do you mind? I just want to make sure that everybody's getting great audio. It seems like there's a little bit of an issue.
That works.
That means I'm out.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Sorry, what was your follow-up?
Would you like that to be asked again, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. So compare New Orleans and Jacksonville and what you're bringing.
So the biggest lesson in resilience is that the more you can do to get out in front of climate threats, the better you'll be when they do occur. So we'll be putting together a comprehensive resilience strategy for the city of Jacksonville, analyzing our vulnerabilities, looking at our risks, and then coming up with policies and projects to address those concerns.
What neighborhoods worry you the most?
Well, I think any neighborhood that directly borders the St. Johns River, its tributaries, or the ocean is kind of at an increased level of risk and vulnerability and will be a critical focus. But we're also seeing these wet summer rainstorms come in and dump kind of inches of water in a short span of time. So even inland flooding is becoming a concern. So I think any of these areas that are kind of high risk for flooding are going to be the primary focus.
I think you all know, obviously Jacksonville is the largest geographic city in the continental United States. Ann has been here for 8 weeks and has been spending a significant amount of time exploring this vast land that we have here that borders water.
And in fairness to you, you're new here, you've been here just 2 months, but there's a new redevelopment proposed plan for the landing property. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. Part of the proposal is ripping out some bulkhead and docks, 300 feet of it. Critics say that to help the St. Johns River get into the property, and it's not a wise choice. What's your assessment on that?
So I'm working closely with DIA and the Public Works team on that design, and we are making sure that resilience is completely factored in. So the design is still in flux, so but I can say confidently that the final design will have all of those resilience concerns analyzed, addressed, and that the final design will not have anything that has kind of critical kind of bulkhead concerns.
Do you think the living shoreline is a good idea?
I think living shorelines are a great idea, and in general, you hear a lot about gray infrastructure, something like a bulkhead or a pump station, versus green infrastructure like a bioswale or a living shoreline. And my philosophy is really that you need both of those things in concert. And that if you have a bulkhead and have some sort of living shoreline feature in front of it, that actually provides you the most resilience and the best protection.
Does this project, that doesn't appear it necessarily has.
The project design is still under development, but that's something that the design team is looking at, and something that I've communicated we would like to see.
Would it be accurate to say it's flawed at this point?
Well, the design's not final, so
I mean, that's what they're putting out there. That's one that's being splashed out there, option A by DIA.
yeah, and it's going to be changed.
Look, there are engineers, there are experts in finance that are working on getting all these projects. With Ann there, she will work with them to mitigate those concerns. But clearly, when people are investing the dollars, they're not going to invest the dollars in a place that are going to be at risk because of climate concern.
Kind of going off of Ben's question, and there's a lot of talk about riverfront development, particularly in downtown Jacksonville. What can the builders and development community expect from you as far as analyzing the city's resiliency policy for building on the riverfront? And do you intend to be involved in every major riverfront development project moving forward?
Well, I'll say that I think the river is, on the one hand, the major source of risk, but it's also one of Jacksonville's greatest assets. And so I think finding ways for people to access the river and engage with the river is important. And so it's just about thinking long term. How do we make sure that any new development is factoring in, the changes that are happening along the St. Johns River and the natural risk that does bring? My hope is that my role will be to craft policies that guide development. So, right now with the landing project, it's moving quickly, and so I'm coming in and playing a bit more of a direct design role in that. But long term, I'm hoping that the policies the city, comes up with will be able to guide the development of every project that happens, not only in kind of that riverfront area, but across the city.
Do you anticipate changes to the building code, looking at things from setbacks, building materials, those kind of things?
We're going to be doing a really deep dive look on the city's building codes and what kind of new policies are going to be needed. So absolutely, kind of code and zoning changes are something we're going to at least analyze for sure. I can't speak right now to exactly what the specifics of that might ultimately be.
But I would say Ann was brought on to deal with this issue. We're obviously in early stages, and it's a wide open entree for her to assess, analyze, work with our city departments, and come up with the recommendations that are best for the future of our city.
How would you compare the challenges Jacksonville faces to those that you saw in New Orleans?
Well, they're definitely different levels of risk, but both being in the southeast United States, in areas of kind of wet summer rainstorms, direct hurricane hits. So some of that is very similar to what I saw in New Orleans in terms of the type of infrastructure you need, and particularly looking at some of the chronic flooding that's had been happening in neighborhoods like San Marco or Riverside. That's something that New Orleans, had been seeing over the last 5 or so years, and had really aggressively moved on green infrastructure and drainage improvements. And although there was, certainly damage after Hurricane Ida that just swept through, the city's drainage system functioned very well. So I'm very much hoping to bring a lot of those lessons learned about how we can leverage green infrastructure and make drainage improvements to some of those chronically flooded areas in Jacksonville. And that's also a big part of what's happening right now with the McCoy's Creek project, and that's been central to that design. So I think trying to find ways to scale up those design solutions is going to be central to the city's resilience work.
Regarding dredging of the St. Johns River for cargo and transportation, many concerned about dredging it could raise the waters and the water level. Where do you stand? I know it's a major issue, and you're new, but where do you stand when it comes to that?
So that decision was made by the Army Corps, and it was made before I got here. So as far as I'm concerned, that's kind of a reality of the city's risk portfolio, as I'm looking at it. Certainly we're, looking at, dredging some of the tributaries. That's, part of the capital improvement plan, and that can actually take some of the flood pressure off of the main channel of the river. So I think, there's a lot of attention on that project, but, when we hear dredge, there are also ways that we can use sediment for wetlands and other positive resilience projects. So I'm kind of assessing that as as a given in the city's risk portfolio, and then looking to how do we move forward and kind of create co-benefits in the future.
Of course, there's a proposal for a shipyards project. It's in an area that, a flood zone. What can be done to make sure that development, if it goes through, is built in a way that it can stay safe?
There's a lot of different design and kind of building standards that can make something resilient. Certainly, elevating critical infrastructure and using hardening techniques on the actual building can make it so that when a storm event happens, water can kind of hit the building without causing major damage and kind of allowing things to resume after the storm event more quickly. Also, there's a lot that we can do in the physical landscape of the area around the river. So a living shoreline, using native plants, creating spaces for water to be retained while a storm happens, while it passes, and allowing kind of drainage systems to catch up. So those are just a couple of kind of design standards that I think would need to be considered and likely included in any development along the riverfront. But certainly we're going to be looking at how do we make sure that that's factored into the state's zoning and what we're permitting to make sure that any new development along the riverfront has a long history and really is a smart investment.
Are those expensive techniques?
Some of them are and some of them are not. I think especially a new development, you have the opportunity to design something right the first time, and that certainly has a smaller price tag than when you have damage and then have to go in and retrofit. So I think I'm optimistic that this will be something that actually saves developers money in the long term.
Hey guys, I'm so sorry again. Apparently there's no audio again. We'll try to alter that. We apologize. We have the setup working great before everybody arrived.
They just have to sit in front of you.
We're sorry about that. Thank you for being patient with us. Any more questions?
Yes, Mayor, I do want,
Take both of them before we start again, please.
Test. Does it work? No? Is it on? Can you hear it?
Mayor,
You
would
can
you
hear it?
please, sir?
oh, he doesn't have one in front of him.
Please. Mayor, there's no microphone.
There's no mic in front of him.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Mayor, I do want to take the opportunity to ask you while we're all here about a different topic, and that is the signs that have been placed saying anybody needs to have an invitation to come beyond the first floor in City Hall. Why are they put there, and what are you hoping to gain by that?
Sure. Well, look, I wasn't a part of that decision-making process, but my understanding is it wasn't a new decision, that OGC was consulted on that, and that is a standing city policy that has been around for quite some time, and they codified it and put it in the elevators recently. I certainly am open to the public and always welcome conversation and debate, and if people want to protest my ideas and my policies, they're certainly welcome to do that. It's a free country. I've had many protests on the steps of City Hall over the last 6 years. I've had many critics and emails on social media, and I always welcome the criticism and look forward to the feedback.
When was it codified?
My understanding is that's again, we'll have to get someone in the office, OGC,
Okay.
to get back to you, but my understanding is that policy has been a long-standing policy. It's just never been posted.
So nothing's new except for the signs and the
That's what lawyers
enforcement?
tell me. That's what lawyers tell me.
Okay.
Another question, off topic. Mask mandates, of course, big discussion in the schools. The position of the governor's office in the state. What's your position as it relates to the school district, Duval County School District, being defunded, the amount of money based on what members of the school board make? Do you agree or disagree?
I'm not going to get in the middle of a fight between the state and our local school officials. Look, I'm a parent. I have kids in schools here. I care about our schools. I care about our children. I believe in good faith that all parties are trying to do the right thing based on the information and the knowledge that they have. And I'm going to deal with and take care of that which is under my responsibility right now.
And Mayor, regarding the protests that you mentioned, much over the Confederate monument, at least there in Springfield, what is the plan? When will it be moved?
We're working on a timeline, so stay tuned.
Can you give us any more?
That's what I have right now. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry for the mic issues.
Nikki.
you get video of her? Because we don't have much.
I can add to that.
Okay.
So that particular monument cannot be moved unilaterally by executive decision. That will involve legislation and will involve city council's approval. So it's not as easy as many think, and that's what's being worked on right now.
Thank you.
City Council.